Welcome to your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and our topic today is quantum change, rewiring your life without forcing it, with my guest, Cortney McDermott. Now, she has been here before, and she is a best-selling author, a TEDx speaker, and a transformational coach. And she is redefining what it means to grow, both in business and in life. And with a career that's taken her from corporate boardrooms to global stages, Courtney's journey includes executive roles at Vanity Fair, the corporation, Vanity Fair Corporation, and the North Face EMEA, where she pioneered sustainability strategies before she decided to launch her own coaching business. And she advises giants like Google, Nike, and Virgin Unite. Now, she's a graduate of the London School of Economics, and she's fluent in 4 languages. I'm fluent in 2. English and snark. That's all I've got. So I'm always impressed. And she splits her time between Italy and the US, bridging cultures while empowering leaders to ditch burnout and societal gold stars. We'll talk about that for authentic, sustainable success. And her books, Change Starts With You, was named one of Inc.com's top reads for high achievers. And Give Yourself Permission, which I happen to own, it's on my desk right now, blend neuroscience, epigenetics, I never can say that the first time, and quantum theory with actionable tools to unlock confidence and rewire how we approach ambition. And the last time she was here, we did talk about her book, Give Yourself Permission. And I'm going to tell you right now, I highly recommend it. So, Courtney, good morning, and thank you for joining us again today. It's lovely to hear your voice.
Oh, good morning. I get all tingly when I hear your voice. I'm so happy to be back here with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And we had a terrific conversation the
Mhm.
last time you were here, and we can go over that a little bit, but I think you wanted to tell me a bit more about the other book that I referenced. But before we dive in, can you share a bit about you and how you see your role in the world? How do you like to show up?
Yes, I love that. Well, my role, it's funny. I feel like we are all playing roles, right? And that's the sort of truth that came through for me a while back is, we're acting out these personalities. And the word person, right? It comes from persona, which were the masks they wore in ancient Greek theater. And I love that. I always talk about it because when we say I'm this kind of person or that kind of person, it's, oh, I'm donning this mask. And that's great. That's great because lots of times people say too, like, get the ego out of the way. And I'm like, the ego is the lowercase I, it's the persona, it's the character you're playing. And so as long as you know that that character is a character and that the deep truth of who you are can shine through that character, if that's where you're coming from, then your life is going to be great. And so I feel like if I talk about my character or the way the divine expresses through me is let's shine all our lights, right? And so when people come, it's that reminder that you've got that, and to come home to it. And so yeah, that's, I guess, if I'm talking about roles, that's what I'd say. And the first book, as you mentioned, is so the first book originally came out in 2017, and we've just released the audio right now. So I'm super excited about that. The audio's out for both of these books, and yeah, I'm glad to be here and talking about all this together.
And I have some audible, I don't know what you want to call them. I've got money I can spend on Audible. So
Nice. You've
guess
got
where
some.
I'm going? I'll go
I
grab
love it.
both of them. I wanted
Um,
to ask you, and the last time we talked, we we talked about all kinds of things. We just ranged all over the place, but you just
mm,
mentioned in the virtual green room Neville Goddard,
mm,
who I
mhm,
am deeply attached to his work.
mhm,
And I think I mentioned Dr. Joseph Murphy.
mm,
And I'm telling you, I'll tell you what I do with my audibles because I'm not really, when I'm working, I'm thinking, I'm focused, and it has to be quiet so I can
mhm,
stay focused. But when I'm ready to go to sleep and I've said my prayers and I've talked to God and I've talked to my subconscious and turned, whatever I need to know, over for review, I will
mhm,
turn on something like one of those. I'm going to be listening to you in my sleep because honest to
mhm.
God, I get they kind of resonate with me and I'll wake up. I'm not making this up. It sounds like a lunatic, but sleeping is not really my forte.
Mhm.
And something that you or they will say, and I'll wake up and go, oh, 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 hang on. And I'll have to go write it down, back it up, write it down. So I'll be listening to you while I'm sleeping,
I
just so
love that.
it lands better for me for
You
some
know, and
reason.
I believe I waited this long for the audios because we had multiple offers for other people to do the audio on these books, and it for me it had to be my voice, my frequency.
Exactly.
And so I waited. Unfortunately, I waited to the point where the publisher said we need it now, and that coincided with an international move. But I was in the studio every day recording these books, and it was really a heart mission and a love mission. So I'm excited. I get to lullaby you to sleep. That's beautiful.
Well, and I wake up and I back them up and I listen for a little while. I may get up and vacuum, no joke. I don't
Wow.
sleep. I sleep in fits and
Wow.
starts. And then
Mm,
I'll go back, look at my notes and go, okay, I'm coming back to that, note what time it
mhm,
was, and then I try to go back to sleep. I know
mm,
it sounds insane, but that's just how my brain operates.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I will read it and then I will listen to it. And anytime I can, when I have your physical book in front of me, and if I can get the Kindle book, I will do both at the same time. It's not unusual for me to have all three going at once.
mm. You know,
When I
that's the
really want to
way.
hear you, I really
Mhm.
want to hear you.
I love it. I love that. And there's so much power in that. I think in our society, lots of times people go from one thing to the next. They bounce all around and they don't go deep. And that's why the messages that are meant for them can't come through because there's so much distraction and noise. And when you really go into a work, I mean, I'm sure just like you, I've there's some pieces that I've listened to, I'd say probably 100 times, right? Of where I'm in resonance, where I'm in deep resonance with someone in the teachings. And it's so powerful because then those teachings become your own. And that's a beautiful gift.
They really do. And
Hmm.
I have never been, don't hand me a fiction book on Audible. It's just
Hmm.
not going to work for me. And
Hmm.
I do read some fiction, but I'm pretty careful about it. But I read non-stop.
Hmm.
And now that Audible can kind of augment what the book is about, I'm like, ooh, I'm all happy.
Hmm. Oh, I
So
love it. I love your approach.
it
Yep.
works. It works for me. I don't think a lot of people would want to try it, but if it works, it works. I have questions. How can we align our true selves to spark change without forcing action? Because I brought that up at the top of the show, and I can hear people going, what does she mean by that? What is she talking about?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this topic. It's actually been the central point of a lot of the talks I've given recently, how to transform without doing anything. And it's for me, it's sort of what's fascinating to me about it is, I realized at a certain point we're kind of so conditioned, right, to think that we do to become instead of we are and therefore we do. We are something
Say
and
that again.
therefore,
Say that
yeah.
again, because I'm writing that down.
Yeah, so typically it's a little backward in our psyche is this idea that if we do something, then we'll become something. So you could almost think of it as do and then an arrow pointing to become. And that's sort of how we're trained is you got to do this thing, right? You've got to do all these things to become something. And what I discovered in years of just working with human potential and transformation and all the way from the greatest works like the Tao Te Ching that was teaching, in the non-doing it is done. And so I was going from, ancient teachings like that to some more modern teachings that were saying, well, the doing, and this is even in my book, it's something that came out was the doing happens through you as a result of who you are. And so if you were to look again and think of it in terms of graphically, the first would be, do with an arrow to become, and that's how we're conditioned. And the second would be therefore do, and if you're looking at it in a logic symbol, it's like that little triangle, the three dots, you know, be therefore do or be in an arrow to do. And what I found was that if you are something, as I said, the doing happens through you, it happens very naturally. And everyone's felt this at a certain point where they just it feels so juicy. The doing feels yummy, it feels juicy. And you can't even really understand why, because it might even be something that's out of your typical wheelhouse, but it's you are that thing. So I'll give you an example. Some people just believe that they're really, they're fit. They really have a lot of their being or their personality or whatever is sort of centered around that. The character is centered around that physical wellness, physical fitness. And so the doing that just sort of almost seems automatic is they get out and they walk around or they eat healthy. They make, they make different choices than someone who doesn't have that basic psychological premise that is running the show in the background. And so what I started to notice is like if you have this kind of running in your psyche, in your body, in your mind, this belief about who you are, then the doing happens sort of automatically almost, or at least it feels like that. And the fatigue is so much less. And of course, here we're getting into frequencies too, you know, brainwave frequencies, things like that. But it's really kind of a very simple teaching, but it's hard to sometimes it seems like it's hard to grasp because, you know, again, we're so taught that no, you've got to do all these things, you know. I can go on and on about this, so let me know where you want us to go, or if you want me to keep moving here.
No, we can keep moving, and I agree with you. Listen, I I think, and this is just my observation of the world around me, even though I don't go out in it much because I am an introvert and I need to be left alone. I'm good around people for 59 and 3/4 minutes. That's it. That's all I have time to. But I think I'm observing that imagination is lost, or we're
Mm,
losing it. We're not using our imagination. We're not using our curiosity.
mm.
And because of that, we get stuck in exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm. Absolutely. I don't know if it was Einstein or it was someone else that was saying, you know, we've forgotten, we've created a culture that has made the imagination subservient to the rational mind. And I'm paraphrasing, but we made this grave error. And the imagination is actually this infinitely powerful
Powerful.
substance.
I just wrote down
Yes,
powerful
just this
when you were saying
infinitely
it.
powerful substance
Yeah,
that we can work with, that we can co-create with. And when we forget it, as you said, and we have as a society, it is very much to our detriment. And you know, again, this was Einstein that was saying that the rational mind is, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially nothing compared to the imagination. The imagination is where it's at. And if you think about the word imagine, one of the ways I once saw it dissected was to image in, right? We are imaging in something. So the more we play with this creative principle of the imagination, and now when I say imagination, some people say, well, I can't visualize it, right? Because we confound these two. Lots of times people say, well, just visualize it. And a lot of people don't actually have that, you know, they're not visual thinkers, right? So it's like one of the things I'll always counsel is just like, can you feel it somewhere? Can you get a felt sensation of it somewhere, kind of in your body? And if you
right. And
can
can you
connect,
think in pictures? If you can
yeah.
think in pictures, there it is.
Yeah, well, or even if you can't do that, because for instance, I ran a class, I had a client once who was like, I can't see pictures. And I said, fine, fine. I said, can you get a felt sense of sensation somewhere in your body? And this person said, yes, I can get that. I can conjure that up. And I said, that's it right there. And is the excitement, you know, can you relate it to something? Can you relate it to something that you want, something that you're desiring in work? Can you relate it to some sort of evolutionary impulse that's coursing through you? And this person said, yeah, I can do that. I'm so excited about this opportunity that, you know, that I feel is on the horizon. I said, great. I said, hold that for a little bit. That's it right there. There's nothing else you need to do. And it's funny because again, we think we need to do, but it's this playful welcoming in of what is juicy for you. And when you can get with that frequency, as much as you can get with that frequency, right? You're an electromagnetic being. So as much as you can get with the frequency of it, you're tuning into that station. You're tuning into that probability outcome or that potential that exists in the field. And as far as we can tell, there are infinite potentials there. So why not tune into the ones you want instead of, oh, you know, my neighbor's bugging me about whatever. It's like, no, just let's let that go, hand it over to the light and the fire within, and then just embrace this new creative, fun, playful, imaginative principle.
And I do that all the time. And I have to tell you, for the longest kind of time, I didn't realize that I was doing it. It was just natural to me. And I didn't realize that it was something that's kind of special. And, I would just go about my business and I would do. I'm an A-type personality on top of being an introvert. That can get confusing. And, you know, and what you're saying about the neighbor, I've got one neighbor right now. I just want to pinch her head. I really do.
That's a new one. I've never heard that. You're gonna pinch someone's head.
I'm gonna pinch her head, make her stop talking. But she's a nice woman, but I avoid her because she will get started, and after a while, my brain just goes into meltdown. I can't take it. So I know to avoid situations like that. Say, hey, how are you doing? And I run for
Mm.
the garage. I'm not here. And I
Uh,
hope she doesn't know it, and I hope it doesn't hurt her feelings, but I do want to pinch her head. God bless her. But you're right. You just let those things go. You say, okay, I'm done with that. And then you go move into something else. And you said something to me. Sorry, I hope you can't hear my cat. She's 20 years old and she's yelling at me.
oh, welcome her.
She's
Hmm.
telling me that she's starving, which is a lie. She's not
It's a lie.
starving.
It's
It's
a
a lie.
bold-faced lie.
She's trying to pretend like she has kitty
I can't
dementia.
hear her, but she sounds cute.
She's a sweetheart. She is. But we're talking about rewiring our brains, and we're talking about being present is more powerful than doing. It took me a
Mm,
long time to figure that out. But once
mhm,
I realized that I'm not real good at meditating, but I do spend a lot of time in deliberate stillness.
mhm,
And that's what I talk about. I need to be quiet. I need to be quiet. I
mhm.
need to have absolute quiet in the house. I don't want to hear anybody screaming or yelling other than Odalie. She can get by with it. But, I go deep, 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 and I get very still. And I don't know that that's meditation, but it works for me.
Mhm. I would say it's absolutely meditation. I think we have a lot of stigma around this concept, and a lot of people say, "Well, I can't meditate." And really, what meditation is you're just getting with what is. That's what meditation is. And so, whenever you can just get with what is, you're meditating. Doesn't matter if you're washing the dishes, you're walking, you're talking to a friend. We're meditating right now, Denise. So, yeah.
I kind of feel like we are because we're very much on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So, you had talked to me briefly about what neuroscience reveals about rewiring our brains through stillness instead of effort. And I was like, I get that. I absolutely get that because the quieter I can be, my creativity just goes, "Hey, how are you doing? I'm
Mm-hmm.
here."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The great inventor Tesla, he said, you want to understand the nature of the universe, think in terms of frequencies and vibrations, or something along those lines. I'm again paraphrasing. That's it right there. So when we go into whatever form of meditation works for you, right? And different strokes for different folks, God bless. Whatever form of getting with it that you choose, when you do that, your brainwaves start to shift. And so, what we know from the research and what scientists tell us is that we're moving from beta into alpha into theta, potentially even eyes wide open. Like sometimes people can drop into data and delta and gamma. And I mean, I've been in gamma before. I had a spontaneous, spontaneous, just moment with this frequency. It wasn't even a moment. It lasted for quite a while. And it was funny because I had been really studying brainwave frequencies. I had been studying different meditation techniques, et cetera. And I had been really dedicating myself to it. And at a certain point, I just gave up. I said, I'm never going to get into these states. I'm just not going to. And boom, it was the moment that I gave it up that I got it. And I started to experience what it's like to be in gamma with eyes wide open and fully conscious and feeling the connectedness to all that is. And that doesn't have to be anyone's aspiration. It was definitely something that I was really keen on understanding more about. But even if it's not that, it's like just shifting from beta into alpha, you're going to start to become so much more able to draw in what it is that you're seeking, and in a way that's just clear and beautiful. And it's just this, we all have this capability. And so it's really just learning how to tap into it. And now, for anyone who's listening and you're wondering, well, I don't know what my meditation technique, or I don't know what thing to do to, drop into those states. What I'll always counsel people is just go lay down. Just go lay down. And especially if that feels difficult, lay down longer, Because what we're doing when we lay down is we're sending a message to, well, first we're relaxing our vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in our body. And what that does is it basically tells the body, I'm safe. If you don't feel safe, and most people don't right now, as far as I can tell and hear around, and so if you're not feeling safe, you can't be creative. You will not be able to access these brainwave frequencies that we're talking about, and you therefore will not be the electromagnet that you are designed to be. And so it's really just if you just go lay down. I also love yawning. I've talked about that. I think we talked about that on the last show together. Yawning is
Yeah,
considered the best kept secret of neuroscience. It's
it
energizing and
is.
relaxing at the same time. You do it for 30 seconds, you start to release a whole host of beautiful neurochemicals into your bloodstream. Serotonin, oxytocin, all sorts of beautiful, wonderful things are happening in your body. And it just takes a minute. And when we do
And when you
this,
said
yeah,
yawning, I started yawning.
I love it.
I
So
did. And
good.
I watch
So
my
good.
cats and they'll start yawning and I'm right
Yeah.
there with them and we all
Right.
relax. It's amazing.
Yeah, when we relax, that's when we open the portal for imagination. So it's not like this has to happen sequentially, but there's a beautiful sequence that I've found. I've been using it in some of my trainings and some of the talks and keynotes I give around the world is relax, imagine, trust. And
Okay,
those
I'm
things,
writing that down.
yeah, those three,
Relax,
relax, imagine,
imagine.
trust.
Got it. That makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. Okay, keep
Right?
going.
Intuitively, it makes so much sense. And so when we relax, like I said, we're dropping into these different frequencies. When we drop into the different frequencies, the imagination gets the space that it needs. It's like a breathing space, right? Because it's super constricted otherwise. If you're in high beta, which most people are, you're running around, you got this 4-gear race car and you're in first gear, just pedal to the metal. This is the best way I ever heard that described. And you're just racing all around and I got to get somewhere and you don't even know anymore where, right? If sometimes, when people get consumed by that, like I said, you basically can't open to the creative portals that are available to you through this power of imagination that we're talking about, or it's very, very slim, the portal. Whereas you start to widen that gateway when you just relax your body, you feel into something, and you just allow it. Like right now, I'm staying close to the airport because I've been flying a lot, I've been traveling a lot, so I'm staying close to the airport, and there's these. I'm about a 12-minute drive. I'm in a really cute area of San Diego at the moment, just for a little while, just for a few weeks, and these planes, I'm like, oh, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I like these, whatever. And what I decided to do was use my own teaching. So I relax. And every time I hear a plane, I start to imagine something that's really juicy for me. And I get so excited. Now I'm so excited every time I hear a plane. And I've just shifted into something that instead of being disgruntled about something, I can start to enjoy that very same thing just by deciding that I'm going to just relax and connect with what feels good. And so then after we start to play around with the relaxation and the imagination like this, what happens is it's so much easier to trust. And the ironic thing, and I think we did also hit on this in the last show, is, we're trusting virtually everything that's occurring both within us and outside of us. We have to for our survival. So it's a really curious human phenomenon that we take this infinitesimal part that's left over and we say, I can't trust that. I can't trust if the job goes that way. I can't trust if I don't have this relationship. I can't trust if blah, blah, blah. And what that does is, again, it gets our panties in a bundle so we can't get relaxed and we can't imagine. So it's really like once you've started to relax and you started to imagine, you can start to open up to total trust. And if you're in total trust, which is another word for faith, if you will, and I don't mean that in a religious sense, I mean knowing, trusting that your heart's going to beat. Lots of times people say, well, I don't have faith. And I say, well, do you trust that the biochemical reactions, that trillions of biochemical reactions that are occurring in your body every second are going to keep doing what they need to do? Or are you saying, can't trust that? Because if you are, you're going to
Right.
have some serious health issues.
Yeah, pretty
And
quickly.
yeah, right. And so it's like we hand everything over to this intelligence, and it doesn't matter what you call that intelligence. We all know it exists because it's doing all this work that our conscious mind can't even begin to comprehend. And so once we say, oh, you know what? I'm going to hand over the rest of this stuff that I thought I somehow needed to control. And that's when this trust starts opening up to us. And when the trust opens up, bam, game is over. We're in a whole new game, and it's a fun one. It's Leela. It's the divine, play that we hear about in some of the ancient teachings. It's that. And so this again, it's not a sequence, it's sort of a virtuous cycle of relax, imagine, trust. And I just love it. Yeah.
It's going up on my whiteboard. Have you ever
Yay.
read Wallace Wattles?
Oh, I have.
Okay, good.
He wrote The Science of Getting Rich, didn't he?
He did, and the
He
science of
did.
being
And The
great.
Science of Being Great.
Yep.
And yes,
Yeah.
oh, I love that man.
I
Yes.
found him many, many years ago, and I thought,
Me
kind of
too.
like Zig Ziglar. I love Zig Ziglar, completely different
Mm,
genre, but these names, I'm like, what the heck? And I had to go look up what these names meant. But he
mm,
practiced, Waddles practiced the technique of creative visualization, which is what you're talking about. And his
mm,
daughter said he formed a mental picture or a visual image and then worked toward the realization of that vision. I do the same thing. I didn't
mm.
know I was doing it though until
Right.
I came across Wallace Wattles and Neville and a bunch of these others. I went, I am not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
nuts and I'm
Nope.
not alone.
Nope. And you're not alone. No, you are not, my dear. You could never possibly be alone. This intelligence is with you always. Yeah. And it's guiding, I mean, it's guiding us. It literally will, when we start to relax into it, and it really is a relaxing into like, this intelligence has got me. The same way you would into the loving mother, father principle, right? It's got me. And then all of these beautiful synchronicities continue to emerge and make themselves available and known. Hmm.
And listening to that wisdom that I call them downloads, it happens to me in the shower all the time.
Hmm.
I actually take bathtub crayons into the shower
That's
with me.
awesome. I didn't know those existed. I'm gonna go and order those
They
immediately after
do.
we talk.
They do. And because when I'm in there, I am so relaxed and I'm not focused on a darn thing, but I do keep the water's hot enough to steam broccoli. It can get dangerous in there. But that's when once I am fully relaxed, and it doesn't take long because I went in there with the intention to relax. And if I'm
Hmm.
having a rough day, I may take 2 or 3 showers a day because that's my go-to place. And
Hmm.
once I'm down, then I get downloads. And I don't
Hmm.
know where they're coming from, God, spirit. I don't know. My subconscious, I don't know. I don't ask. But
Hmm.
we all hear ourselves talking to ourselves, right? We all have that internal voice. And I'll hear myself say, well, we're going to do this, or I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
When I hear I'm going to do this, I don't write it down because that's my ego. And my ego is often wrong, like dead wrong. So I ignore that. But when I hear we can do this, I'm like, okay, writing it down.
Mm,
That's coming from
mm,
somewhere else.
I love that.
It
I love
works for
that.
me. Try it. You don't
Yeah.
need to scald your skin though. So, whatever's
I will
coming.
definitely avoid that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I come out of there and there's steam everywhere. I've got a cathedral ceiling. I'm bright red, but I'm all happy because now I'm smarter. So
Yeah.
it
I'm smarter.
works.
That's
Yeah.
so good.
I got downloads. I'm ready to go.
Oh,
So
so
whatever
good.
works. But yeah,
Love it.
Wallace Waddles. But you and I have talked about tuning into our body's wisdom, and we're talking a bit about that. But how do people say, okay, is this an external strategy or am I listening to my wisdom? How do they figure it out? Because it's not easy.
Right. As far as I can tell on this note, it's really there's a different sensation in the body. And again, this is the best I can tell, is one of them feels like a striving energy and you sort of feel a little worn. And the other feels like a juicy, excited, and frequency. It's like I'm excited. This feels yummy. And the minute it doesn't is when I time myself out. A little bit like you when you say, "Oh, as soon as it's I can do this," I sort of time out and I take a little bit. I look from a different place. The observer place of
Right.
what's
Right.
happening here. And it's funny because I never know how that's going to show up. Like for instance, I there are things that I absolutely love, and I know I love them. I love being on stages. I love connecting with those audiences. I love, being here and having these conversations with you. I get that juicy, yummy, like this is source or that intelligence is working through me and using me. And I get that feeling. It's electric. And then there are other things that I don't get that, but I know, okay, maybe this is part, but then there's sometimes the things that surprise me. Like for instance, I just had a big move and we were changing things up in one of my businesses, and I wanted to really get with this we're using a new finance software. And I said, I want to get with this. I want to understand it. And I, was kind of shying away from it because I thought, well, this isn't necessarily something I'm going to enjoy. And instead, sort of during the middle of the night, I just woke up and I was like, it's time. It's time to do it. And so I hopped on my computer and I started connecting with this. I just wanted to know this and get some level of just real clear understanding. And it just felt so juicy and good. And I thought, you know what? This is because I am this thing. I am this type of business owner. I want to know, I want the clear picture of the 360 on my business. But before it was more, oh, I got to do this thing so that I can be that. Now it's, oh, I am that. So I get to do this thing. And the juiciness of working on it in the middle of the night, like I don't usually, unlike you, I don't usually get up and work in the middle of the night or do other things or I definitely don't vacuum in the middle of the night. That's awesome.
Well, I've
Um,
I've been known to make a gumbo.
Oh
That's even
gosh.
worse.
Oh, I hope you'll invite me one of these days for that gumbo. I promise to only stay for 59 minutes, but I want the gumbo. I'm coming.
The door is open.
I'll stay for under the 60-minute marker, but oh man, I love gumbo.
Oh,
So,
me too.
so I'm basically, so it's funny because a normal in the past that wouldn't have necessarily been something that hit that excited. So here's how I think about it. This intelligence wants to express through this form. The more space we give it, and the more we start to connect with, oh, how does it want to express now? How does it want to move through me now? The more opportunities we get, the more talents we get, the more we can expand into this being that just becomes, we don't even know where it's going with us. We don't know where it's taking us. We just sort of hand it all over. And this reminds me a little bit of the parable of the talents. I don't know if you want me to share about that. It's something I really think is it's something so interesting and intriguing to me for how this works. But regardless of that, we could talk about it or not. It's
No,
this.
do talk about it. And then
Okay.
remind me to ask you what I was up to 2 weeks ago. I had exactly what you're talking about. It's something that's been bugging the heck out of me. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know if I wanted to do it. I knew I needed to
Mm,
do it. And the
mm.
more I told myself I needed to do it, the more resistance I provided myself. I
Ooh,
think we all
let's do
do
that right
that.
away. Tell us that story right away, because then it's a perfect segue to the parable of
Oh,
the talents,
gosh.
probably. Yeah.
Well, this podcast is 17 years old, old enough to drive, old enough to have a, I should throw it
Mm.
a debutante
It's
ball.
almost gonna get to vote.
I
Love it.
know, I know. And I have been told multiple times by, people who know me well, by myself, you've got to start monetizing this podcast. Like, I don't
Mm,
wanna. And I've
mm,
done an awful lot of whining, and
mm,
that's ugly. I don't wanna. So, and I just couldn't make myself do it because honestly, I didn't know how to do it. Kind of like what you were talking about. And I was terrifying myself. This is a big deal, what I'm doing. And finally, it was a Saturday morning, and somebody made me go to my chair. I don't know who guide,
mm,
you know, put me over here in the command center. Is what I call my office.
mm,
2 solid days, Courtney. I didn't come up for air. 2 solid.
mm.
My back hurt. My butt was flat. I was
Mhm.
tired.
Mm,
And I
mhm,
worked and I worked. And the more I opened it up, it's like, oh my God, there it is. I couldn't get it written quickly enough. I couldn't
mm,
wrap my head around it quickly enough. Then
mm,
just recently, another thing came to me that has to do with it. It's sponsorships, but it's sponsorship is adjacent, and it offers more to people who want to be sponsors on the podcast. I won't go into a lot of detail because this show's
mm,
about you, but I was still in that zone and I still am today. I'm so excited and so relieved and so grateful. It
mm,
finally just busted open. I'm like, I'm here. I'm
mm,
here
mm,
for it. So, but it
mhm.
busted open in a big way.
Well, you just said excited, relieved, grateful. That is
Exactly.
exactly it. That's exactly the energy of this, of, what we're talking about. And this is definitely, we're here for us, right? We're here. This is so beautiful that you had this, you have this perfect story, this perfect example that hopefully, when people are listening, is like, oh, that thing I've been that has all this task swell around it. I once heard it like that, like you got something to do, and then the more you put it off, the bigger it seems. And it's just like all this task swell instead of just saying, but you have to get to that point where it comes from this place of now I'm ready. I believe that that is such a beautiful sort of rather than I have to do this thing, whatever. It's like, okay, I'm gonna allow this shift to take place. I'm gonna allow this transformation. I'm gonna step into these new potentials. I just love that story. I'm so glad you shared it. But that
Thank
whole
you.
relieved and grateful, I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
excited, like that's the frequency of it,
Yeah,
that's the frequency of
exactly.
it.
And there's always, look, I don't know about you. I make lists. I'm a list maker. They're beautiful. They're
I love
color
lists.
coded. They're,
I'm a list junkie. I love them.
yeah. And
Hmm.
I had to walk away from that and just say, okay, it's going
Hmm.
to come to me or it's not. And I walked away.
Mm.
The minute, I think that was a Friday, I kid you not. The
Mhm.
minute I said, I'm done with this, I am not going to beat myself up anymore.
Mhm.
If I'm meant to do this, I will find a way. Not me, my spirits, my guides, you, people like you
Mhm.
will find a
Mm.
way to get it into my blockhead. And it
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I was like,
Wait,
oh,
and that's the other key. That's the other key that we shared earlier when I was talking about the gamma waves is the minute you give it up, you get it. The minute you give it up and you just say, and it just doesn't mean that you haven't tried. It actually means the opposite. As far as I can tell, it's we try, we're consciously, we've got that intention, we're wanting something, we're feeling something, and then we just relax. That's another way of saying give up. I think it maybe could be a better way in terms of understanding how this works is okay, I can really desire that thing. That's beautiful. That's the evolutionary impulse coursing through me. Once I know that often we hear desire in terms of also maybe what the Buddha's teachings of desire being a trap and desirelessness being moksha or liberation, right? I don't necessarily agree with that teaching. I mean, in the sense that I think it may have been mistranslated. And Anthony DeMello talks a little bit about this in his work of, it's not the desire, it's the clinging to. It's the clinging to the desire. And in some cases, it's also our pushing away of something, right? It's this energy of just not allowing the isness, right? And
right. Your
so,
resistance just goes into overdrive, and I'm known for that. Look, I fight with my
yeah.
nav system. She is not the boss of me. So I've got a lot going on in my head at all
Yeah.
times.
Well,
Okay, keep
yeah.
going.
Well, and so that's the thing, right? The minute we can relax, and again, here we're talking frequencies again, right? We just relax. And the minute we start to do that, we open up to the ways these potentials can move through us. But before that, we just got, like I said, I got our panties in a bundle. And so it's just a lot harder for those things to move through us. And so, again, as far as I can tell, that piece of sometimes it looks like giving up. I know it has for me. It's like, oh, dang it, I've tried every which way and it just didn't work out. So screw this. And sometimes I even get upset with God. I call that intelligence God. I say, you know what, God, I showed up here, I did all the things. Now I'm, whatever, I'm handing it over to you and I give up, but I can get kind of feisty sometimes.
Yeah, I've been
And
there,
then,
done it. And I'm
yeah,
waiting for him to smite me every
well,
once in a while.
well, and then the most beautiful thing is this intelligence. Once I sort of get to that place, and it's almost like a kid that's throwing a tantrum, and then I just sort of collapse into a puddle of my own. I tried everything, and once that happens, it's like boom, breakthrough time, and this intelligence says, "Oh, she finally got out of the way,"
Exactly.
and so then it steps in and it gives me all the solutions and shows me all the ways.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
What was she fighting for? What was wrong? She'd been doing, and you've been fighting too long, Denise. Like, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I got it. But once I
Yeah,
got it, I was like, oh my goodness.
yeah,
There it
yeah,
is. And
yeah.
I've been working on it for a couple of weeks and I'm not done. I will get done quickly. It will keep
Mm.
evolving and I'm still so excited.
Yeah, that's the energy, that juicy excitement. That's the fun, and when you realize you're not, go take a nap. That's what I tell people. I say, if you realize that you're not feeling that, just go take a nap. And sometimes people will say, well, I can't just go take a nap. I got all these things. And I always paraphrase at that point from the Dalai Lama's teachings, and I borrow from those teachings. And I say, well, if you don't think you have 5 minutes to go lay down, please lay down for an hour.
I had to teach
Time
myself
yourself
that.
out. Yeah.
Right. I'm not a
Yeah.
napper. At least I didn't used to be. Napping was just like, why? I don't sleep
Mm.
well anyway, so why do I need to nap?
Mm.
But I realized, I'll tell you what happened. I had to take trazodone, I think it was, right
I
before
don't know what that is.
Thanksgiving. Oh,
Mm.
don't take it. If your doctor gives it to you, don't take it.
Mm.
But what happened was right before Thanksgiving, about 3 years ago, I really thought I was going to have to just gnaw my arm off in my sleep.
Mm.
I have never been in that kind of pain. And
Mm.
there was nothing there. There was no bruises. There was nothing. I hadn't hit myself with it. I didn't know what was going
Mm.
on, but the agony was very real. And I
Mm.
turned it over, and I've shared this with you, to my subconscious for review the day before Thanksgiving. And I said, I need to know what this is. I mean, I'm cooking turkey tomorrow. I need to be able to lift this
Mm.
off.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, Courtney, 318, it always comes at 318, and I keep a notepad next to my bed.
Mm.
And it said shingles. And I said, what the heck
Wow.
are shingles? The,
Oh, my mom had
listen,
that.
oh my
Ah,
God.
awful. My God.
Oh, and I woke up, and then, the next morning when I actually woke out of bed, I looked at my arm, blisters everywhere. And I
Oh.
threw on the biggest t-shirt I could. I took myself to the clinic because I don't really have a doctor.
Mm.
And she said, what do you think's wrong with you? I said, shingles. She said, how do you know? And I just tossed up my t-shirt. She said, yep, shingles.
Wow.
They gave me this stuff
And you
that
didn't know when that answer came to
I
you? You
did
had never
not
heard of
know.
shingles? My
I
God,
I
that's
was thinking
wow.
scurvy. I was like, I didn't know that even existed, but
Mm.
no, I had no idea. It was
Wow.
awful, and I still have some nerve damage from it. It was really
Mm.
bad.
Mm.
But I went shingles. Okay. Then the blisters showed up. Okay, understood. Got it.
Mm.
But what happened was they gave me, I think it was trazodone. It would knock me out. I mean,
Mm.
literally knock me out. So I was taking unplanned naps. And then I
Mm.
kind of I said, okay, and I threw that stuff away. I did 3 days of that, I was done.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned that I was actually working in on myself in these
Absolutely.
brief naps. So now I will go to around 2 o'clock, I will go lay down on the couch, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever cat wants to sit on my bladder is going to do that, And
So good.
I tell myself 15 minutes because I have an internal clock. I think a lot of us do.
Yeah, I do.
15 minutes, and I will wake up exactly 14 or 15 minutes later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it
Same if I
calms
set a
me
time.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it calms
Mm-hmm.
me down.
Wow. Yeah. And that's the thing. If you think about it, when you say, oh, I get up in the middle of the night, and I guess that's not very common, et cetera. But if you think about it, babies, when we're babies, up into, I don't, until the age that it's trained out of us, we constantly are taking naps and waking. And that's the
Exactly.
time
And I
in
still do
those,
that. I sleep
yeah.
like a baby
Well,
or a
and
cat.
in
A cat nap all times.
Oh God, so good, so good. Because so when we're napping, when we, go into delta frequencies, which is when we're in sleep, normally, or like deep sleep, and you can go into those REM cycles, you can go into them pretty quickly, actually. So when we move into that, what our body's producing is something, I'm sure you've heard of, human growth hormone.
Yeah, yeah.
So we are real time using, and babies create the most of this growth hormone. This is why they have those massive spurts of growth. And so, again, this is science. So, if you look at napping, it's actually one of the greatest built in technologies that we have. Only it was trained out of us because it's, oh, I got to just keep going. I got to keep doing all the things. And so, we really start to believe that, we couldn't, but we shouldn't. And so, when we relax into, oh, now I love it. I even wrote years and years ago, it's probably about 10 years ago, I wrote an article for the Huffington Post about napping. And I knew at the time, because it was funny, some people said, oh my God, you nap? Like, how do you find time for napping? And I said, oh, I nap as often as I can. And my daughter was really young when I wrote that post, and it said, because in Italian, or in Italy, most people take naps, and I had her always laying down, and we would take a nap, um, and she would tell me, she would say, Mamma, domani quando mi sveglio farò questo, quello, quell'altro, which means tomorrow when I wake up. So she was thinking when she wakes up from her nap, it's tomorrow. And
Right.
I wrote in that article, I said, it is like that. You get a whole new day. and you only need 5, 10, 15 minutes. You get a whole new day and you get a whole new body to approach that day. Napping is just so phenomenal. It's again such a great technology like yawning. It's fabulous. And we need to pull it out of the can't do box or the shame box of you got to keep busy. I may have mentioned this, but busy is one of those in the past conversations that we had. But busy is one of those words that I just removed from my lexicon years ago. And people tell me all the time, they say, "Oh, you must be so busy. You do this, this, and all." I said, "Oh, I'm not busy at all. I'm the least busy person you'll ever meet. I don't do busy. I do not do busy."
And I
And
agree with you, and I
yeah,
don't use the word can't either. That is
right.
not part of
Yes,
my
absolutely.
vocabulary at all. I'll say I
Beautiful.
won't,
Right. Thank
but
you.
that's yeah,
Thank
I
you.
don't use the word can't. It's a bad word.
Beautiful. It's a bad word. I knew a man, wonderful man, Roger Love. I still know him. Roger Love. He's a amazing voice coach, vocal coach. He trained me. He's trained a lot of really amazing voice, people, singers, and people like Tony Robbins, and have worked with him. And he made for his children, he turned and like and filler words. He said those were swear words. And so his children were absolutely and are absolutely not allowed to use those. He calls them swear words, bad words.
Right. Right. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of bad words out there.
There's a lot of bad words. There's a lot of owing and umming and eyeing. And I notice I catch myself sometimes too, because now that I'm in California a lot more, I catch myself, I'm stateside so much more. I'll catch myself with these fillers. And every time I realize it, I say, okay, it's time to stop. If you're trying to fill that space with something, that let's make that silence.
Exactly. And I mute a
Mhm.
lot during this podcast because of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
I've shared this with you. I don't want to hear myself or anybody else hear me go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
really? It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessary. I I have well, you're talking about napping. I recalled years ago, many, many years ago, I had read somewhere that Conrad Hilton, the Hilton hotels, he took a nap
Mm-hmm.
every single day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
It's
I
so
I remember
rejuvenating.
thinking, why? But
Mm-hmm.
then my second thought, well, he's really wealthy, so whatever he's doing, it was working. So
Oh,
there was
yeah.
that.
Well,
But
and
now I get it.
wealth consciousness is about freedom. And if you don't have the freedom to lay down, that needs to be looked at. I mean,
Hmm, good
if we
point.
deprive ourselves of that basic freedom of I get to rest when I need to rest, we need to look at it. Yeah.
And that makes perfect sense to me. But, I read things, I see things, and then 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, I'm like, oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
don't discount something immediately. Hang on to it. You may need where you were talking about Tesla. I saw um an article or something the other day. I mean, the way he lived the end of his life was just horrendous.
Mm.
And I don't know what happened to him, how he got so poor and so broke and so toothless. He didn't have any teeth.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. I don't know
He,
anything about his life, really,
oh God, he was
personal life.
absolutely stunning,
Wow.
brilliant, genius, but he
Ah,
died alone and he died absolutely flat broke with no teeth. That
wow. I
breaks
didn't
my
know that.
heart.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Look at it.
Okay.
His one of his last pictures. It's heartbreaking.
Mm, mm, mm.
And he imagined everything. So much of what we live with now, he imagined.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he did something about it.
Hmm.
But still, his ending was just horrific.
Well, I guess
I
he
don't
didn't
know
imagine
why.
himself. He
You
poured all
know,
of it into who knows. He didn't imagine
yeah,
a new potential for his physical form, potentially. I mean, if he had,
right.
I imagine that being different. Yeah.
I've wondered where he just kind of gave up because
I,
clearly he
yeah.
did.
Mm,
It's just awful.
mm.
Practices like gratitude and play, we've talked about those, but you wanted to share something a little bit earlier and I interrupted you.
Oh, no, no, no. We moved on to other beautiful pastures. I was the one thing that we had kind of parked there was the parable of the talents. And I'm going to get
Yes,
it wrong because it's been so many years since I read the Bible and parts of the Bible, but um and I'd gone back to certain parts like this one because I was so interested in what he was teaching, but or what the teachings were. But there was this one about the parable of the talents. And again, I'm going to get this kind of off, but let's just stick with it because the essential point is the same, which is God gives these talents to three different individuals. And the first, he gives something like 10 talents, and the second, he gives five, and the last, he gives one. And talents, actually, the translation of talents in the Testament, in the New Testament, was money, it was currency, which is beautiful because currency comes from corrente, which is flow. And so he had given these talents, and he comes back after a while, and he goes to the one of, 10 talents. He says, how'd you get on? And he says, oh, I doubled my talents. This was amazing. And so God gives him twice as much as he had. So if he had 20, he gives him something, 40. And again, I'm making that part up, but he goes to the guy with five and he says, how about you? And he says, oh, I didn't quite double him, but it was amazing. Or maybe he did double him. And he said, anyway, but then God gives him a few more and it's fantastic. And he's excited. And he goes about his way. And then he goes to the one that he'd given one talent to. And that one says, well, I didn't know what to do with this thing. I buried it. And God took that talent away.
Oh,
And yeah, and I didn't understand this at all when I first read it because I'm like, well, why would a loving God do that? But what I realized is it's all God. It's all expressions of God, and the individuals are also individual expressions of this divine, of this intelligence that we've been talking about. And again, call it what you want.
right.
Not talking
Yeah.
about it in a religious sense necessarily at all, but this idea that you have been given something. You have been given something. We all have been given something, and that is the way that this intelligence is meant to express itself through you specifically. It's like the piece that you are on the puzzle. And there is a place for you in that puzzle, and there is a function for you. And when you decide that you're going to sort of tune into what are those things, again, that we talked a lot about this earlier, of like what's exciting me, and you tune into it. And that's, I believe, is such a strong creative principle, is I tune into this thing that's calling, and I allow myself to experience it. I not only allow, but I move into the experiencing of it. I choose to experience it, and then I watch it sort of grow and become something new and possible. And this is, when we were talking about you going in for your business and the sponsors and the advertising and all of that, and kind of moving into an understanding, it's like, or when I was talking about the new finance software and stuff, it's like these things that instead of avoiding them, we say, oh, God has given me this thing, because every day you're given things. You're
Oh,
given things.
yeah. Yeah.
And
And we
if
can't keep
you
track. It's hard to keep
yeah,
track of it
there's
all.
so many beautiful things you're given. And you're just given all of these, like, oh, now I get to deal with this ticket that came in the mail, and you're given it. And if you deal with it and you get with it, oh my God, you start to feel like, oh, I'm self-realized. I'm more and more self-realized. And then you'll be given other things. And if you go and you get with those things, you're gonna realize more self-realization, until this point where you're like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. I had no idea that this intelligence was going to express in this way through me. Wow. And you just get continually blown away by what's available and how much you can expand and how much you can take up that space. It's just, for me, it's just so beautiful. And that's what I've garnered from that teaching.
And I love that. And listen, I think I had a father who had a very high IQ.
Mm.
He did not like it when I proved to him that mine was 5 point higher. So he was
Oh.
he was a little miffed. He was a lot miffed,
Mm.
but he was not
Mm.
a deep thinker, which
Mm.
always I could never figure him out. High
Mm.
IQ, smart as he could be, didn't
Mm.
understand life at all.
Mm.
At all. I mean, not at all. And I remember watching him. We weren't around him much because he left when I was 13, but I
Mm.
remember thinking, I do not want to be like that. I
Mm.
recognized that there was something terribly wrong even then.
Mm. Mm. That was maybe the purpose, right, of his
Maybe.
expression,
Yeah.
was to turn, to remind you of what you came here to express, or what that intelligence came to express through you.
And see, I never even thought of it like that. I was just,
Mm.
A type, go, 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 do, 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 got my
Mm.
list. I've got stuff to do. We all have stuff to do. And if you say that in a Southern tone, it's even worse.
Oh,
So,
it's so great.
but once I had to relax, or I taught myself to relax, I started reading and understanding more. Yeah, and I wouldn't call myself a Christian. I'm not anti-Christian, but I'm not a churchgoer. I never have been. I
Mm.
never will be. but I'm deeply spiritual, which is
Mm-hmm.
where I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I started reading Wallace Wattles and,
Mm-hmm.
Neville and meeting people like you, it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I can relax now
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know that sounds goofy, but I didn't. I was just too busy
Oh,
being
well,
smart.
no, it sounds actually quite intelligent. The other day I was being interviewed, and the woman said, "Well, what do you think about imposter syndrome? And have you ever felt it?" And that's a
Oh
common
God, yeah.
question
We
that
do
you
it
might
all day,
get,
all
and all this
day,
stuff.
every day.
And I said, I think we need to just, that that term, maybe instead of thinking that I'm an imposter, we can just admit that I don't know.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't know. And when we do that, it's so liberating. I don't know. I really don't know. I have no idea what's right for you, but you do. I can't know that for you. I can't know that for anyone. But but inside of you is this intelligence that is waiting for you to get with it so that you can know your own knowing that again is for you. And
Right.
and I think that as soon as we can really relax into that permission, like in my second book, and I was talking about giving yourself permission, we give ourselves that permission to just say, oh, I can relax because honestly, I don't know. I mean, how could I know how these trillions of biochemical reactions are doing what they need to be doing? I don't know. But I can just get with, like I said, what's in front of me. I can groove with that. And all of a sudden, there's an awareness, there's a beauty. There's a beauty. There's a restful beauty of like, oh, I can get with this. I can get with this. And that for me is
Right.
coming home, just coming home. Hmm.
So now I agree with you. And when you first notice it, that it's happening with you, it can be a little uncomfortable because this is not what we didn't, we weren't trained for this. We were trained to go, go, do, the usual.
Mhm, mhm,
And then all of a sudden you're telling yourself to slow down, take a break, breathe, meditate, be grateful. It's kind
mhm,
of foreign in some ways, but once you do relax into it, it just keeps coming. Promise.
mhm,
I promise you it does.
mhm,
So
mhm,
listen to
mhm.
what Courtney is saying. Listen, Courtney, thank you so much for joining. We're out of time. I can't believe
Denise,
it.
thank you. Thank you. And
Oh,
everyone, I'm so glad that people are tuning into you because you're the real deal. Thank you for being
oh,
here. And thank you to everyone who joined us. Thank you.
very much. Well, listen, thank you for joining us today and sharing your wisdom on effortless transformation. I love that term. It's going up on my whiteboard. But
Mm,
before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement that you really want our listeners to hear?
mm.
And where can people connect with you?
Well, I just want to say I love you for being here. Whoever is listening, and Denise, you putting this together and creating this platform. I just love you. And know that you're loved. Know that it's safe to relax. And if something's really resonant with you, as I'm sure your podcast is resonant with everyone who's listening, go back to it. Keep coming back. Keep coming back because it's not me who's speaking. It's not Denise who's speaking. It's you who's speaking to yourself. And any teacher who's worth his or her salt, or, whatever gender you identify with, that teacher is going to be pointing the way back to you. You're the answer. You are the answer. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The ways to connect with me, I'm pretty much everywhere online. My name is Cortney with an O only. So it's Cortney McDermott. And so if you look up at Cortney McDermott, you'll find me on different social medias. My team's there, but we go through everything. I get all of the notes that come in. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds of notes from people saying how this work has changed their lives, how the book has changed their lives, how it's gotten them out of certain circumstances. And I love all of that. I try to also respond where I can. I give talks all around. I got a public one coming up. I usually do private events, but I'm going to be giving a public talk in South Carolina, in Greensville, South Carolina, mid-May. So if you get a chance to join me there, it's a keynote. I'd love that. Yeah, I'm online. The books are everywhere books are sold. The audios are out. So if this is resonant with you, again, this is because you're calling it in. So thank you, and I'll join you wherever you are.
Excellent. Well, listen, everybody, in today's episode, we dove deep into the art of effortless, I love this, effortless transformation with my guest, Cortney McDermott. And together we explored how aligning with your authentic self can spark meaningful change without, this is important, without the grind or constant striving. You can relax into it. And Courtney shares fascinating insights from neuroscience and revealing how stillness and presence can actually rewire our brains. And I know that to be true and open the door to real growth. And we discussed the power of letting go of the need to fix ourselves. I was horrible about that forever. I'm past it now, or I'm close to past to it. And yeah, now I can't even talk. And how surrendering control creates space for organic and lasting shifts. So you'll hear, and as she says, go back and listen to this, read her books. You'll hear why tuning into your body's wisdom often guides you more effectively than chasing external strategies or societal benchmarks. I don't know about you, Courtney, but when I'm told that I have to do something, I rebel. It's like, nope,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
really do fight with my nav systems. Nope, not going to go left. No, I get lost a lot. But I find neat places to go visit. And we unpack the concept of self-sustainability and how nurturing your own well-being leads to more sustainable, effortless change. We keep talking about that. Plus,
Mhm.
Courtney offered practical ways to use gratitude and play to reset your nervous system and unlock transformation from the inside out. So here's what I want to tell you. If you're ready to stop hustling for change and start thriving from a place of presence and authenticity, this episode really is for you, and so is our prior one. So just look up Courtney on your Partner in Success Radio. You're going to find both of these. So notice what shifts for you and let her know. Get in touch with her. Let her know, how these books and how these conversations are helping you. So go find her, Courtney at CourtneyMcDermott.com, and share your biggest takeaway from what I think is a very important conversation. And remember, true transformation starts within. So listen, write this down. Give yourself permission to grow just by being you. Courtney, thank you so much. And listen, I
Thank
don't
you.
think we're done. Anytime you want to come back, you just let me, you let me know. I'll fit you in.
I love you. I'm here for it. All the parties together
Oh,
for real.
great.
You're the real deal. Like I said, I'm here.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, thank you so much. I know we had to reschedule this a couple of times. And I'm so appreciative of your patience getting that done. And you're here. So
Thank you.
I'm all
Yeah.
happy. Listen, everybody, thank you. And I will see you next week. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.